Mr. Thorne, and therefore effective immediately. Your employment with Sterling Enterprises is terminated. A beat of shocked silence. Emily stands pale, but her chin is high. Veronica smirks triumphantly beside Thorne. Suddenly, a calm, unexpected voice cuts through the room. Alex Miller. Actually, Mr. Thorne. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. All heads whip towards the doorway. Alex Miller, the cleaner, stands there, his worn cap shadowing his eyes, his cleaning cart beside him like an unassuming companion. Thorne's face twists into a mask of fury. Emily stares, a flicker of disbelief and dawning hope in her eyes. Mr. Thor. Tana. What is the meaning of this? Who let him in security? Alex Miller takes a deliberate step forward, his gaze locking onto Thorne. The air crackles with unspoken tension. Alex Miller. Regarding Miss Carter's proposal, I believe the errors were introduced maliciously. And as for Miss Jenkins, perhaps her lack of proactive engagement refers to her refusal of your inappropriate advances. Just who is this mysterious cleaner, and what gives him the courage to challenge a powerful manager? The truth is about to unravel in a way no one expected. If you're already forming theories or feeling that spark of injustice, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts down in the comments. And if you're eager to see Mr. Thorne get what he deserves and witness the full story unfold, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single shocking revelation. In the gleaming heart of the city, Sterling Enterprises towered a testament to innovation and a multi-billion-dollar empire. But within its opulent walls, its young visionary owner, Alexander Sterling, felt a profound emptiness. At 33, he possessed a fortune that could buy almost anything, yet the one thing he craved, genuine human connection untainted by a P&L statement, remained elusive. Every smile seemed to appraise his net worth, every laugh an echo of transactions yet to come. Another charity gala, another parade of well-intentioned admirers. Alexander remarked, a wry twist to his lips as he loosened his tie in his penthouse office. Below, the city lights glittered like a carpet of fallen stars, each one a distant, impersonal gleam. His trusted friend and ever-composed personal assistant, Arthur, stood nearby, a master of stoic professionalism. Indeed, sir, the Sterling Foundation's latest initiative was very well received. Several prominent families expressed keen interest in future collaborations. Arthur's voice was carefully neutral, but Alexander caught the flicker of understanding in his eyes. Alexander sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Collaborations. That's all it ever is, Arthur. Business, even in matters of the heart. I'm tired of it. Tired of the curated smiles, the calculated kindness. I want something real. He walked to the vast window, his reflection a solitary figure against the sprawling metropolis. I've made a decision. Arthur raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, a silent invitation to continue. I'm going undercover. In my own company. A brief, almost imperceptible pause hung in the air before Arthur responded, his tone unwavering. A novel approach to market research, Sir Alexander finally smiled a genuine weary smile. Something like that. I'll be Alex Miller, the new cleaner on the 3rd floor. I want to see how people behave when they don't know who I am. I want to find someone, anyone who sees a person, not a walking bank vault. Arthur adjusted his cufflinks, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. And your qualifications for this new role, sir? I recall your last encounter with a vacuum cleaner was less than victorious. A reluctant chuckle escaped Alexander. Precisely. It'll be an education. Besides, he added, his voice softening, if someone can appreciate Alex Miller, the clumsy cleaner who probably smells faintly of pine disinfectant, then maybe Maybe they're worth knowing. He looked at Arthur, a plea for understanding in his eyes. I need this, Arthur, to believe there's more than this. He gestured vaguely at the luxurious trappings of his office. Arthur gave a slow, deliberate nod. Very well, Mr. Sterling. I shall prepare your entry-level employment package, and perhaps a discreet tutorial on the advanced art of mopping. Alexander clapped him on the shoulder. Your comedic timing is improving, old friend. Just ensure Alex Miller is hired without any fuss, and no safety nets. The next morning, the transformation was complete. Alexander Sterling, an icon of Forbes magazine, was replaced by Alex Miller, a man deliberately unremarkable. His sharp suit was swapped for ill-fitting generic work attire. His expensive haircut was hidden beneath a worn baseball cap, and his usually confident stride was a more hesitant, slightly awkward gait as he pushed a cleaning cart through the polished hallways of Sterling Enterprises. He felt a strange mix of apprehension and exhilaration. This was it. No board meetings, no fawning executives, just him, a mop, and the unvarnished truth of human interaction. He fumbled with the industrial-sized bottle of floor cleaner, nearly dousing his worn sneakers. Conquering the stock market, he muttered under his breath, was definitely easier than conquering this child-proof cap. A small, almost invisible smile played on his lips. It was a ridiculous, humbling start. It was during his second, more successful attempt at mopping a patch of corridor near the IT department that he first saw her. Emily was an IT assistant, her desk slightly cluttered with schematics and half-eaten apples, a testament to long hours and focused work. She possessed a quiet intelligence that shone through her unassuming demeanor. Today she was patiently trying to explain a complex network issue to a dismissive marketing executive over the phone, her voice calm despite the audible frustration from the other end. Yes, Mr. Henderson, I understand you need it urgently, Emily said, her fingers flying across her keyboard. I am rerouting the server traffic now. It should resolve the latency. Yes, immediately. She ended the call with a soft sigh, pushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. Later in the small, often overlooked staff canteen, Alex Miller sat alone, picking at a sandwich that tasted mostly of disappointment. He watched as Emily entered, her smile gentle as she greeted a few colleagues. She bought a simple salad and a bottle of water. As she passed his table, she noticed his meager meal and the slightly forlorn look on his face. With a warmth that seemed to radiate, she paused. Rough day, she asked, her voice surprisingly kind. Alex, startled, looked up. Oh, just new. Still finding my feet. Emily smiled. It gets easier. I'm Emily, by the way. It. Alex? He replied. Alex Miller. Cleaning. He gestured vaguely with his sandwich. Well, Alex, she said, welcome to Sterling Enterprises. If you ever need help finding the good coffee, or just someone to complain about the occasionally peculiar smells in the West Wing, I'm usually around. She gave a small conspiratorial wink before heading to her own table. Alexander watched her go, a strange feeling stirring within him. It wasn't pity or even just gratitude. It was a spark of something he hadn't felt in years, genuine, unprompted human kindness. His observations over the next few days painted a starker picture of the workplace dynamics. He saw Mr. Thorne, a portly, self-important regional manager, strutting through the office like a feudal lord. Thorne's voice, often too loud, dripped with condescension when addressing junior staff, yet became honeyed sycophancy when speaking to anyone he perceived as powerful. Alex Miller, the cleaner, was beneath his notice invisible. Then there was Veronica, an ambitious sales executive in Emily's department. Sharp-featured and dressed to impress, Veronica moved with an air of calculated superiority. Alex saw her subtly take credit for a collaborative idea that Emily had largely developed, her smile never wavering as she presented it to Thorne, who lapped it up. Veronica barely glanced at Emily, let alone Alex Miller, unless it was to issue a curt demand for her overflowing trash can to be emptied. One afternoon, Alex was polishing the already gleaming nameplate outside Mr. Thorne's office when Thorne himself burst out, nearly colliding with a young woman clutching a resume. She was visibly nervous, clearly there for an interview. "Watch where you're going," Thorne snapped, not at the cleaner, but at the young woman, Sarah, who stammered an apology. Thorne looked her up and down, a predatory glint in his eye that made Alex's stomach clench. "So you think you have what it takes to work at Sterling Enterprises, do you, miss?" He glanced disdainfully at her resume. Sarah Jenkins. "Well, we'll see. We value proactive employees here, those willing to go the extra mile." His emphasis was laden with an unsavory insinuation. Sarah visibly wilted under his gaze, but managed a small, "Yes, sir." "I'm a very hard worker," Thorne grunted, then swept past her into his office, leaving her shaken. Alex Miller, silently buffing the brass, filed away the unpleasant encounter. His quest for authenticity was rapidly turning into an exposé of the underbelly he hadn't realized existed so prominently within his own walls. The game, he realized, was far more serious than he'd initially anticipated, and Emily's simple kindness in such an environment shone all the brighter. The days settled into a strange rhythm for Alexander. By morning, he was Alex Miller, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of Sterling Enterprises with his cleaning cart, a silent observer in his own kingdom. By night, he was Alexander Sterling, poring over discreet reports from Arthur, piecing together the puzzle of his company's undercurrents. The contrast was jarring, yet illuminating. His interactions with Emily became small, cherished highlights. She'd often greet Alex with a genuine smile, sometimes sharing a piece of fruit or a friendly observation. One rainy afternoon, she found him staring intently at the new, automated coffee machine in the break room, as if it were an alien artifact. Lost in thought, Emily asked, a gentle amusement in her voice. The machine had been a source of mild frustration for many. Alex, startled, offered a sheepish grin. "Just admiring the engineering. It's quite a complex beverage delivery system." Emily chuckled, a light, pleasant sound. "You know, Alex, for a cleaner, you have some very profound thoughts on the meaning of, well, coffee machines. Most people just curse at it when it dispenses lukewarm water instead of a latte." She expertly navigated the touchscreen. "The trick is to be firm, but polite. Like dealing with some of our clients." She handed him a perfectly brewed cup. "There. My treat." "Thank you, Emily," he said, the warmth of the cup seeping into his hands, a warmth that had little to do with the coffee. "You seem to have a knack for problem-solving." "It's part of the job," she shrugged, but her smile lingered. "Besides, you notice things most people don't. It's like you see the whole grand opera in a coffee spill." Alexander merely smiled, but her words resonated. He was seeing an opera, a drama of ambition, kindness, and deceit playing out in the everyday theatre of the office. His invisibility as Alex Miller granted him access to unvarnished moments. He overheard Veronica in the ladies' room on her phone, her voice dripping with false sympathy, as she discussed Emily. "Oh, darling, Emily is sweet, bless her heart. But a bit slow on the uptake. You know, Thorne is losing patience with her. I'm trying to cover for her, of course, but it's exhausting being the only one pulling their weight." The lie was so blatant, so casually cruel, it made Alexander's jaw tighten. He'd seen Emily work late almost every night, her dedication unwavering. Meanwhile, Mr. Thorne's unwelcome attentions began to focus more pointedly. He'd accidentally brushed past Emily in narrow hallways, his hand lingering a moment too long on her arm. He started complimenting her appearance in ways that made her visibly uncomfortable. "Emily, my dear, that color brings out your eyes. You should wear it more often. Perhaps to dinner with someone who appreciates such things, he'd said one afternoon, his voice unctuous, as Alex Miller was emptying a bin nearby. Emily would offer a polite but firm, "Thank you, Mr. Thorne, but I'm quite busy with the network upgrade," and quickly make her escape. Each time, Alex felt a surge of protective anger, a desire to step out of his disguise and put Thorne firmly in his place. But he knew, with a frustrating certainty, that revealing himself prematurely would only compromise his larger goal. He needed irrefutable proof, not just for Thorne, but for the systemic issues Thorne represented. One evening, Arthur met Alexander in a discreet, rarely used storage room, a far cry from their usual penthouse meetings. Sir Arthur began his expression as impassive as ever, though Alexander detected a hint of dry amusement in his tone. "Your performance as Alex Miller continues to be remarkably convincing, especially the part where you look genuinely bewildered by the industrial floor buffer. The Oscar for Best Performance by a billionaire in a custodial role is surely within reach." He handed Alexander a small, button-sized recording device. "This should be less conspicuous than your current audio-visual equipment." Alexander pocketed it. "Any updates on Thorne's financials?" "Indeed, sir. Discrepancies. Significant ones. It appears Mr. Thorne has been enjoying a lifestyle somewhat aspirational, shall we say, for a man on his declared salary." "Keep digging," Arthur Alexander said, his voice grim. "I want to know everything." The weight of his secret grew heavier with each passing day, especially as his admiration for Emily deepened. He saw her quiet acts of integrity, patiently helping a flustered intern staying late to fix a critical server issue without seeking praise, even sharing her umbrella with Sarah Jenkins, the nervous job applicant, when they both left during a downpour. Sarah, it turned out, had been hired but seemed perpetually on edge, often looking over her shoulder whenever Thorne was near. One particularly stressful afternoon, Emily was working against a tight deadline on a crucial presentation for a major client. Alex Miller was cleaning nearby, his presence so familiar now it was almost part of the office furniture. He saw Veronica approach Emily's desk with a sugary smile. "Oh, Emily, darling, Mr. Thorne needs those quarterly projection charts, ASAP. Could you just quickly print them out for me? I'm swamped." "Sure," Veronica, Emily said, distracted, her eyes glued to her complex data flow. "The master file is on the shared drive, under Q3 Projections Final." A few minutes later, as the deadline loomed, Emily let out a small cry of despair. "Oh no, the file. It's corrupted. All the formatting is gone. The charts are a mess." Panic tinged her voice. She had minutes to fix it before the client briefing. Veronica, feigning shock, appeared at her shoulder. "Oh, you poor thing. What happened? Did you save it properly?" Her voice was laced with an insinuation of incompetence. Alex watched, his blood boiling. He knew with a sickening certainty that Veronica's fingerprints were all over this accident. He'd seen her linger by Emily's unattended computer earlier. Emily's face was pale. I thought I did. I always do." As Veronica offered unhelpful platitudes, Alex Miller quietly approached. "Excuse me, Miss Emily," he said, his voice low. "Sometimes, when my nephew's computer does that, there's an older version saved automatically. Shadow copy, he calls it." He kept his explanation simple and plausible for a cleaner who might have picked up a stray tech tip. Emily looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "A shadow copy? How do I find that?" He right-clicks on the file, then goes to Properties, then Previous Versions. Alex offered, deliberately making it sound like a half-remembered piece of advice. said it saved his homework a few times after his little sister, redecorated his documents. With fumbling fingers, Emily followed his hesitant instructions, and there it was, a version saved just an hour prior, before Veronica's help. "Oh, Alex, you're a lifesaver," she exclaimed, relief washing over her face as she quickly restored the file. "It's all here." How did you even know that Alex Miller just shrugged, a faint smile on his lips? Just lucky, I guess. Heard it on one of them YouTube tutorials for fixing, well, anything. He shuffled away, resuming his task of emptying bins, leaving Emily to quickly finalize her presentation. Veronica shot him a venomous glare, unnoticed by the relieved Emily. Later that day, as Alex Miller was finishing his shift, Emily sought him out. "Alex, I can't thank you enough. You really saved me back there." Veronica was not being helpful. "Glad I could assist," he said, still in character. Emily tilted her head, a curious, appraising look in her eyes. "You know, for someone who just heard it on YouTube, you're pretty resourceful, Alex Miller." Her smile was warm, genuine, and held a hint of something more. A dawning curiosity about the quiet, observant cleaner who seemed to know more than he let on. The secret Alexander knew was becoming a fragile thing, and his heart unexpectedly was becoming just as vulnerable. The atmosphere within Sterling Enterprises grew heavier in the following week, thick with unspoken anxieties. Mr. Thorne, emboldened by what he perceived as a lack of repercussions for his earlier actions, became more brazen. He cornered Sarah Jenkins, the young new hire, near the deserted stairwell one evening, as Alex Miller was silently polishing the nearby handrails. Miss Jenkins Thorne began his voice, a low, oily purr that failed to mask its predatory intent. "I've been reviewing your probationary performance. You have potential, but potential needs nurturing, the right kind of attention." He stepped closer, invading her personal space. "Perhaps we could discuss your future prospects over dinner, just you and me. I'm sure we could find a mutually beneficial arrangement." Sarah, visibly trembling, clutched her bag tighter. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne, but I have evening classes." Thorne's smile tightened. "A shame. Such dedication to academics. Some might say you're not dedicated enough to your career here. Opportunities like tides." "Miss Jenkins, wait for no one." He let the threat hang in the air before turning away, leaving Sarah pale and shaken. Alex's jaw was a hard line. The recording device in his pocket felt like a live coal. Meanwhile, Veronica, sensing an opportunity to further ingratiate herself with Thorne and eliminate Emily, who she increasingly saw as an obstacle despite Emily's non-confrontational nature, set her own nasty plan in motion. A critical client proposal, one Emily had poured weeks into, was due. Veronica, under the guise of helping to proofread, subtly altered key financial data in the master document just hours before it was to be presented, making the projections look disastrously inaccurate. She then made sure to be the first to spot the error in a team pre-briefing, casting doubt on Emily's competence. Oh, Emily, Veronica had sighed, her voice laced with feigned dismay during the team huddle led by Thorne. "These numbers, they can't be right. The client will laugh us out of the room. Are you sure you double-checked everything?" Emily, blindsided and horrified, stammered, I did. I checked them multiple times. I don't understand." Thorne, seizing the moment, puffed out his chest. "This is precisely the kind of carelessness I've been warning about. This is a multi-million-dollar account, and you treat it with such amateurism. Clearly, you are not suited for responsibilities of this magnitude." He looked around at the assembled team. "This incompetence ends today. I'm calling an emergency departmental meeting this afternoon. We need to discuss restructuring and accountability." His eyes rested malevolently on Emily. Emily felt a wave of despair wash over her, but through it a spark of defiance. She had worked too hard, been too meticulous for this to be her mistake. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice trembling but clear, "I stand by my work. There must be some mistake, some system glitch. I can prove my original calculations were correct." Veronica scoffed. "Oh, please." Always an excuse. The emergency meeting was scheduled for 4 p.m. in the main conference room. Arthur, having been alerted by Alexander, discreetly ensured that the AV system was perfectly functional and that through a series of urgent IT upgrades, key personnel from other departments, including HR and senior management liaisons, were also invited to observe what was ostensibly a departmental review. The stage was being set. As employees filed into the conference room, the tension was palpable. Emily sat near the front, pale but resolute, her laptop clutched in her hands. Sarah Jenkins sat further back, looking terrified. Thorne took his place at the head of the table, a smug look on his face, with Veronica positioned beside him like a favored courtier. "Thank you all for attending this crucial meeting," Thorne began, his voice booming with false authority. "It has come to my attention that certain standards of performance and, frankly, integrity have been severely lacking. Miss Emily Carter," he said, fixing her with a glare, "your recent handling of the pivotal Q-Tech proposal was, to put it mildly, a disaster. Such gross negligence cannot be tolerated." He leaned forward. "Therefore, effective immediately, your employment with Sterling Enterprises is terminated." A collective gasp went through the room. Emily felt the blood drain from her face, but she stood up, her chin held high. "Mr. Thorne, I object to this. I have evidence that my original work was tampered with." Veronica quickly interjected, her voice dripping with false concern. "Emily, please, don't make this harder on yourself. We all saw the errors. It's truly unfortunate." The look she gave Emily was pure venomous triumph. Indeed, Thorne boomed. "And as for you, Miss Jenkins," he said, turning his attention to Sarah, who shrank in her seat, "your probationary period has also proven unsatisfactory. Your lack of proactive engagement leaves me no choice." Before he could continue, a calm, quiet voice cut through the charged atmosphere. "Actually, Mr. Thorne, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." All heads turned. Alex Miller, the cleaner, stood near the doorway, his cleaning cart parked beside him. He looked completely out of place, yet his demeanor was surprisingly composed. Thorne's face contorted in fury. "What is the meaning of this? Who let him in security?" Alex Miller took a step forward. Regarding Miss Carter's proposal, he continued, his voice steady. "I believe the errors were introduced maliciously. And as for Miss Jenkins, perhaps her lack of proactive engagement refers to her refusal of your inappropriate advances." Thorne turned purple. "How dare you? You're fired. Get him out of here." Veronica looked momentarily stunned, then smirked dismissively. But before security could react, another figure stepped smoothly into the room. Arthur, impeccably dressed, holding a tablet. "Actually, Mr. Thorne," Arthur said, his voice carrying an unmistakable air of authority, "I believe Mr. Miller has a few more points to make." As does his employer. A confused murmur rippled through the room. Thorne stared, dumbfounded. Arthur turned, slightly gesturing towards Alex Miller. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the man you know as Alex Miller. In reality, allow me to introduce Mr. Alexander Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Enterprises." The silence that followed was absolute, a stunned, breathless void. Then chaos. Gasps, whispered exclamations, chairs scraping as people shifted in disbelief. Thorne's jaw literally dropped, his face turning a sickly shade of pale. Veronica's smug expression froze, then shattered into pure, unadulterated panic. Her eyes darted around like a trapped animal. Alexander Sterling, for it was undeniably him now, as he removed the worn baseball cap, his posture shifting from subservient to commanding, stepped fully into the light. His gaze, sharp and incisive, swept across the room. Mr. Thorne Alexander said, his voice no longer the hesitant tone of Alex Miller, but the clear, resonant voice of a leader. Your tenure of mismanagement, harassment, and, as we've recently discovered, embezzlement ends today. He nodded to Arthur, who tapped his tablet. On the large screen behind them, crystal-clear audio began to play. Thorne's sleazy proposition to Sarah Jenkins. Then, security footage, showing Veronica at Emily's computer shortly before the file was corrupted, followed by forensic data confirming the deliberate alteration. Finally, damning financial records detailing Thorne's illicit siphoning of company funds. Thorne sank into his chair, speechless, deflated. Veronica began to tremble uncontrollably, muttering, "Oh, it's not true. It's a mistake." The only mistake, Alexander stated, his voice cold as ice, was your assumption that your deplorable actions would go unnoticed. Sterling Enterprises was built on integrity, innovation, and respect. You, he said, his gaze pinning first Thorne, then Veronica, have violated every one of those principles. He looked towards the HR head and security chief, who had been watching in stunned silence. "Mildred, Thorne and Miss Veronica Logan are terminated effective immediately. Please escort them from the premises. Legal proceedings will follow." As the disgraced pair were led away, still stammering denials and disbelief, Alexander addressed the remaining employees. His voice, though firm, now held a note of weariness. "I apologize for the deception, but I needed to see the truth of this company from the ground up. I needed to understand what truly happens within these walls beyond the boardroom." His eyes scanned the room, finally landing on Emily. She was staring at him, her face a mask of utter shock, her hand covering her mouth. Her eyes, wide and luminous, were fixed on him, filled with a whirlwind of unreadable emotions. Disbelief, confusion, perhaps betrayal, and something else he couldn't quite decipher. The room was silent again, the weight of the revelation pressing down on everyone. Alexander Sterling, the billionaire, the enigma, had been walking among them, cleaning their floors, witnessing their truths. And for Emily, the kind, unassuming IT assistant, who had offered half her sandwich to a poor cleaner named Alex, the world had just been irrevocably turned upside down. The chapter of Alex Miller was over. The chapter of Alexander Sterling had just begun, and she was standing thunderstruck at its very epicenter. The days that followed the explosive meeting were a blur for Emily. The name Alexander Sterling echoed in her mind, overlaying every memory she had of Alex Miller. The kind, quiet cleaner who had listened so patiently, who had offered surprisingly astute observations, who had saved her from Veronica's sabotage with a tip from YouTube. He was one and the same as the commanding CEO who had dismantled careers with cold precision, the billionaire owner of the entire company. Gratitude warred with a profound sense of disorientation. Mr. Thorne and Veronica were gone, and for that she was immensely relieved, not just for herself, but for Sarah Jenkins and countless others who had suffered silently. Yet the man responsible for this justice was also the man who had, in a way, deceived her. Had their interactions been real or merely part of his elaborate experiment? The thought stung more than she cared to admit. She needed space. Alexander, to his credit, seemed to understand this. He made no attempt to contact her directly in the immediate aftermath. Work continued, albeit under a strange new light. Colleagues whispered, speculating, some now viewing Emily with a mixture of awe and curiosity. She politely deflected their questions, her mind too preoccupied to engage. Alexander, meanwhile, found himself in an unfamiliar territory of patience and self-reflection. The success of his gambit felt hollow, without knowing how Emily truly felt. He had found someone genuine, someone who had seen value in Alex Miller, but had he, in the process of his discovery, inadvertently hurt her, or destroyed the fragile trust that had begun to form? "She's avoiding me," Arthur Alexander said, one evening pacing his penthouse office, the city lights below no longer a symbol of his achievements, but a reminder of the distance that might now exist between him and Emily. "Given the circumstances, sir, a period of adjustment is to be expected," Arthur replied, ever the pragmatist, though his tone held a note of sympathy. "You orchestrated a rather significant plot twist in her daily narrative." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. "I know. But the connection I felt with her as Alex Miller, that was real, Arthur. At least for me. I hope she can see that. I don't want her to feel like she was just a part of an investigation." He sighed. Perhaps this was a mistake. Using deception even for what I believed was a good reason. "You sought truth," Sir Arthur reminded him gently, "and you found it in more ways than one." Miss Carter's character shone through. The method may have been unorthodox, but the discovery was genuine. Now it's her prerogative to decide what to do with that truth. After a few days of respectful silence, Alexander knew he had to speak with her. He didn't summon her to his imposing office. That felt wrong, a power play he wanted to avoid. Instead, he approached her quietly at the end of the workday, near the small staff canteen where they had first spoken. "Emily," he began, his voice softer, more hesitant than the CEO who had commanded the conference room. He was dressed in a simple, well-tailored suit, but there was no pretense about him now. "May I have a word?" "Please?" Emily looked up, startled. Her heart did a strange flip. Seeing him here looking more like a refined version of the man she thought she knew was disarming. She nodded slowly, her own voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Sterling." "Alexander, please," he corrected gently. "Or Alex, if you prefer." He gestured to an empty table. "Can we sit for a moment?" They sat in awkward silence, stretching between them before he broke it. "Emily, I owe you an apology. A profound one. My methods were deceptive. I understand if you feel misled or even angry. That was never my intention, but I see now how it might appear." He looked directly at her, his eyes sincere. "The truth is I was lost, surrounded by people who only saw my wealth, not me. I was desperate to find anyone who could see past the billionaire. Alex Miller was my way of trying to find that. And then I met you." Emily listened, her gaze fixed on his face, searching. "So our conversations, my sharing my lunch, your help with the computer file, was all of that just part of the test?" The question was quiet, laced with a vulnerability that tugged at his conscience. "No," Alexander said firmly, leaning forward. "Absolutely not. Your kindness, your intelligence, your integrity. Those were the things that drew me to you, Emily. The moments we shared, however small, were the most genuine I'd experienced in years. Alex Miller may have been a disguise, but what he felt, what I felt, was entirely real. If anything, I was the one being tested, and you passed with colors I didn't even know existed." He paused, then continued, a touch of vulnerability in his own voice. "The problem is I didn't consider how the reveal, the scale of it all would affect you. If I've hurt you or made you doubt your own judgment, then I am truly sorry." Emily was silent for a long moment, processing his words. The honesty in his eyes was undeniable. She thought of Alex Miller, the quiet observer, the surprisingly insightful cleaner. And then she thought of Alexander Sterling, the man who had risked his reputation to expose injustice. A small hesitant smile touched her lips, so she began a touch of the gentle humor they had once shared, creeping into her voice all those times I offered you half my meager sandwich. You probably have a personal chef back at your penthouse who makes Michelin star sandwiches. Alexander blinked, then a slow smile spread across his own face, a wave of relief washing over him. Several, actually, he admitted, a hint of a chuckle in his voice. And I can honestly say none of them were ever as good as yours, especially after I'd heroically battled the mysterious stain in the third-floor men's room. Emily laughed, a genuine, clear laugh that seemed to lift a weight from both their shoulders. The absurdity of it all, the sheer unlikeliness of their meeting, suddenly seemed less like a deception and more like a bizarre, orchestrated twist of fate. It was quite the performance, she conceded, her smile softening. You almost had me convinced you were considering a career change to philosophical sanitation engineer. The thought had its appeal. Some days, he quipped back, his eyes warm. He grew serious again. Emily, I know this is a lot to take in. A world away from what you expected. She met his gaze, her own expression, thoughtful. Alex Miller. I trusted him. He was kind, respectful, and surprisingly wise for someone who claimed his main skill was wrestling with a floor buffer. She took a breath. Alexander Sterling. He's a billionaire CEO who turned an entire company upside down to find truth and justice, and who also apparently enjoys a good, simple sandwich. She paused, her next words chosen carefully. I knew Alex Miller. Now, I think I'd like to get to know Alexander Sterling. If the offer still stands, hope bright and overwhelming surged through Alexander. Emily, he said, his voice thick with emotion, the offer more than stands. It's everything. It wasn't a grand declaration, not yet. But it was a beginning, a fragile bridge built on the foundations of an unconventional friendship and the promise of a truth yet to be fully explored. The choice had been made a quiet affirmation in a small canteen, echoing louder than all the boardroom pronouncements. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change, not just for Emily and Alexander, but for Sterling Enterprises itself. True to his word, Alexander didn't just revert to being a distant CEO. The insights gained as Alex Miller became the blueprint for a new company culture. He spearheaded a complete overhaul of HR policies, establishing an anonymous ethics hotline and a transparent review process that valued contribution over sycophancy. He implemented a mentorship program and championed initiatives to improve conditions and recognition for all staff, particularly those in often overlooked support roles. He even held a company-wide town hall, not as the imposing billionaire, but as a leader who had for a brief time walked in their shoes. I learned a great deal as Alex Miller, he confessed, his voice resonating with sincerity. I learned that every job has dignity, every individual has worth. And I learned that a company is only as strong as its most undervalued employee feels. The applause that followed was genuine, heartfelt. Sarah Jenkins, the once terrified new hire, found her footing. With Thorne gone, and a supportive environment fostered by Alexander's changes and Emily's quiet encouragement, she began to blossom, her skills finally recognized. She personally thanked Alexander, not with fear, but with a newfound confidence that was a testament to the shifting tides. Emily, meanwhile, navigated her new reality with grace and intelligence. She wasn't just Alexander Sterling's girlfriend. She was Emily Carter, a talented IT professional with ideas of her own. She proposed a new internal communication platform designed to foster better collaboration and feedback across departments. A system born from her own observations of where things had previously fallen short. Alexander, impressed and proud, championed it immediately. Their relationship deepened, built on the bedrock of honesty they had forged. They learned to merge their worlds. One evening, Alexander would accompany Emily to her favorite neighborhood bookstore, discussing literature with an enthusiasm that surprised her. The next, Emily would navigate a glittering charity gala on Alexander's arm, a little wide-eyed, but never losing her authentic charm. She once found him in the state-of-the-art kitchen of his penthouse, surrounded by a chaotic mess of flour and oddly shaped things. Attempting to bake Mr. Sterling, she'd asked, an amused smile playing on her lips. Alexander, looking utterly defeated by a recipe for what were supposed to be simple cookies, grinned sheepishly. I believe culinary disaster is the more accurate term. Alex Miller was definitely not a baker. Turns out neither is Alexander Sterling. He held up a tray of blackened lumps. My Michelin star chefs are probably having nightmares. Emily laughed, taking the tray from him. Well, your effort is commendable. Perhaps we should stick to ordering pizza when you feel domestic. An excellent proposal. Miss Carter, he'd agreed, pulling her into a flour-dusted hug. Arthur, observing these transformations, maintained his professional composure, though a subtle warmth now often tinged his dry wit. So he once commented, after Alexander recounted a particularly challenging attempt to assemble a piece of flat-pack furniture for Emily's apartment, "Your dedication to Miss Carter's domestic comfort is admirable, though perhaps your talents remain better suited to assembling corporate mergers rather than Swedish bookcases." One crisp autumn evening, months later, Alexander took Emily back to the now empty staff canteen after hours. The lights were dimmed, and a single candle flickered on the table where Alex Miller had once shared a meager sandwich, and Emily had offered kindness. "This is where it all started," in a way Alexander said softly, taking her hands. "Where I first saw a glimmer of hope. Where a woman showed kindness to a stranger, expecting nothing in return." He looked into her eyes, his own filled with a deep, unwavering love. "Emily Carter, you saw the man behind the disguise. You showed me what true worth, true connection really means." He knelt not as a billionaire making a grand gesture, but as a man who had found his heart. He produced a small velvet box. Inside a ring sparkled, elegant and timeless, not ostentatious. "You once said you wanted to get to know Alexander Sterling. I hope in these past months you've seen him. The real him. And I hope he's someone you can imagine spending your life with. Will you marry me, Emily?" Tears welled in Emily's eyes, tears of joy and a profound sense of peace. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, Alexander. 1,000 times yes." Their wedding was not the society event of the year, as many might have expected. Instead, it was an intimate celebration, surrounded by close friends, family, and a few key colleagues who had witnessed their journey, including a beaming Arthur and a confident Sarah Jenkins. It was a testament to their unique story, a blend of two worlds united by love and authenticity. They didn't just live happily ever after in a fairy tale sense. They built a life, a partnership. They worked side by side, Alexander leading Sterling Enterprises with a renewed vision. Emily contributing her skills and her compassionate perspective, often spearheading the company's growing philanthropic efforts focused on education and opportunities for the underprivileged, a cause close to both their hearts. Their evenings were a blend of quiet discussions about their day-shared dreams for the future and the occasional still humorous attempt by Alexander at a normal chore. The scars of past deceptions and disillusionments had faded, replaced by an earned serenity, a peace that came from knowing they had found something real, something worth fighting for, in the most unexpected of ways. One evening, standing on the balcony of their home, overlooking the city that had once felt so impersonal to Alexander, Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. Who would have thought she mused that a billionaire in a cleaner's disguise would lead to all of this? Alexander smiled, holding her close. Only when I stopped looking for love in all the grand places, he said softly, did I find it in the simplest, truest heart of all. Below them, the city lights still glittered, but now they no longer felt distant. They felt like a promise of a shared future built on kindness, integrity, and a love that had truly seen it all. And so from the polished floors of sterling enterprises to the quiet warmth of a shared life, Alexander and Emily discovered that the greatest fortunes aren't always measured in dollars, but in moments of genuine connection and the courage to see beyond illusions. Their journey reminds us, doesn't it, that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Perhaps true love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who sees and values the real you, even when you're disguised as someone else entirely. This story has certainly left us reflecting on the quiet acts of kindness that can change a life, and the incredible strength found in vulnerability. What about you? Did Alexander's unconventional quest, or Emily's steadfast heart, resonate with something in your own experiences or beliefs? We genuinely believe every story holds a mirror to our own lives in some way. We'd be so grateful to hear what this story meant to you. What particular moment or lesson stood out? Please share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Your perspectives truly enrich our community. We're always striving to bring you stories that touch the heart and spark conversation, and your feedback is invaluable in helping us grow and improve. If there's anything you felt we could do better, or an idea you have for future tales, we're all ears. If Alexander and Emily's journey to an earned serenity moved you, a thumbs up would mean the world to us. And if you feel this story might inspire or bring a little warmth to someone else's day, please consider sharing it with them. Of course, to continue exploring more tales of love, unexpected turns, and the enduring power of the human spirit with us, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. We have so many more journeys we'd love to share with you. Thank you for spending your time with us today, for walking alongside Alexander and Emily. Until our next story, may you find beauty in unexpected places and cherish the genuine hearts around you. Stay blessed and take care.